You're listening to the AVIT Amplifier. Each week, we'll feature voices and ideas that need to be amplified in the higher education and pro-AV IT communities. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. And now here's your host, Ryan Gray.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in again to the AVIT Amplifier. Once again, if it's Wednesday, you know we are going to be here for you. And I'm very excited today because I have a guest to bring you that is one of the people out there that definitely has more energy than me on any given day and at any given time. And those are always the most fun to talk to. Someone who probably doesn't need a lot of introduction to most of our listeners. But Gina, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming to talk with us today. Gina, who are you and what do you do?
Ryan, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. And it is such an honor because this is my first time on your show, and it's really, really happy time of year. It is the holidays, and so I get to spend it with you, which I love. But my name is Gina Sansivero. I am Vice President of Marketing and Corporate Communications at Atlas IED, and perhaps even more important, one of the founding board members of Women in AVIT, also known as WAVIT.
Well, thank you for joining us. And yes, one of those people out there that many people know because you seem to make it your business to know everybody and be connected to everybody. And yes, it is a great time of year to be talking. I figured if you're going to get people to tune in over the holidays, who are they going to tune in to hear? And Gina Sansivero, that was the answer to that question.
It is the sweetest thing ever. Thank you.
No problem. All right. So first, I want to dive into WAVIT and talk a little bit about how that came about and kind of what it means to you, where you see it going. But let's chat Atlas IED for a second before we do that. What I think, Atlas is out there in a couple of fronts. We got a lot of Atlas speakers. So people who know, Atlas as someone whose their ceiling speakers are, what all else are we overlooking when we think about Atlas IED?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. So for 87 years, we've been the ceiling speaker company, right? That's what everybody has known us for. But gosh, we do so much more than that. And we are stepping a little bit further into a premium audio category. So we have our head end, the Amplifier DSP digital audio platform. We also have some new really high-end ceiling speakers born from a partnership with a very, very high-end residential speaker company called Fine. So our Atlas Fine Isoflare speakers were just launched in June. Mm-hmm. We also have our new AS line of surface mount speakers. So clearly very, very, very well embedded in the audio world. From a good, better, best standpoint, we have every single category kind of covered. But we also do, and what a lot of people don't even realize, is we do mass communication and paging really well. So 87% of the airports in the United States, you'll hear a woman named Carolyn. She works for Atlas IED. She is the library voice for most of the airports. If it's not a woman, it's a man. And Mr. Fox is that man. So he also works with Atlas IED, and he is the voice of the other percentage of the airports that don't use Carolyn's voice. So that audio system in airports is what we do. And we have IP endpoint solutions for mass communications in schools, universities, healthcare, corporate, industrial applications that really allow you to leverage your PA and intercom system for campus-wide, district-wide, building-wide mass communications during emergency situations as well. So lots going on at Atlas IED, and it's so much fun to be here right now.
Cool. Well, I would encourage everybody to look at it because, I think Atlas is in a lot of places. And like I said, I've got a ton of classrooms with Atlas speakers in it, but especially those large scale paging and the safety systems, especially K-12, are key and important and worth looking into. And I thank you for sharing that because, it's
thank you.
Atlas is on the move in a lot of ways, and it's been fun to watch and it's been fun to look. Okay, so let's chat WAVIT for a second because I remember. Yeah. It's been a little while, but sort of the announcement of WAVIT coming out and this offer to become a founding member, and I was like 100% I'm going to become a founding member of this. I don't even know what the details of it. It doesn't matter. This is right along the line of something I'd be really interested in. So what is the story? How did WAVIT come to be founded, and why is it something that you've chosen to say, I am going to take my time and invest in this organization?
So, WAVIT was born when a few ladies and I got together and decided that we needed to be kind of far more active in creating the change that we wanted to see in the industry. And that change is clearly having a more diverse industry, having more women in executive and upper management positions, having women have more of a voice in the industry, and then inviting more young ladies and girls to consider AV and IT as part of their career path. So it's kind of a multi-channel focus, but what we realized is there's a lot of women's groups, and they are wonderful. They deal a lot with support and networking, making sure that each other feels represented, making sure that each other feels like they have what they need in order to become amplified in a way. But there's so many other things that we need from an organization other than networking and support. So WAVIT was born to create programming that offers training and professional development for women to move into leadership positions. We offer outreach to local schools, whether it's colleges, technical schools, or high schools, to start talking to young girls and young ladies about AV and what a career in AV can look like. We are working with other affiliate organizations like Women in Digital Signage, and Avixa Women's Council organization, but really, I know it sounds so cliche, but we wanted to be the change we wanted to see. Mm-hmm. And so WAVIT kind of just became that doer type of network rather than just kind of a support network, which I don't want to minimize that. It's super important.
So what, when it comes to, like you said, be the change you want to see, and the kind of your founding board is an all-star group. How have you gone about trying to choose those activities? You mentioned offering training and doing that sort of thing, and re-seeing the industry with women not only being better represented, but as you said, in leadership as being the answer to a lot of other problems. It feels like there's a whole myriad of things you could take on to do that, and you've chosen to kind of start in a couple of areas. What was that process like to say, we think these things will be the most effective, or we think these things are the things we can get off the ground?
Well, honestly, there are so many things that we want to do, and it's hard because, to your point, we launched a year ago, right? So January 2nd was really our launch, and we launched with certain foundational elements in place because we knew in order for this group, in order for this community to thrive, you need a solid foundation. So our board spent probably the better part of a year prior to last January building out that foundation, and that's the website, and that's some committees, charters, bylaws. We are a 501c3 organization in the state of California, so we have a lot of professional clout behind us at this point. We are a true organization. We have a tax deductible status. And we knew we would need all of that in order to, one, be taken seriously, but two, get off the ground in a way that gives us the best chance of success. On top of that, we started seeding certain objectives. So we looked at what's our mission, what's our vision for the next year. We set up goals, and we said, in order to achieve these goals, what are the handful of priorities that we have to create? We have dozens and dozens and dozens of ideas, as you know, about how we would like to move this organization forward. But we knew we needed to only choose a few to start with because it was a small board. and we hadn't even opened it up to membership yet. So that's what we did. So first and foremost, our priority was membership, because the more members we have, the more active volunteers we have, the more likely we are to then move other initiatives forward. So we developed a membership, a call for membership and membership outreach. And then our second priority was sponsorship. So how do we get some of these programs off the ground, including outreach, including mentoring, including increased training opportunities and professional development opportunities, and then being visible, right? Marketing. How do we get that off the ground? And so we needed sponsors. So sponsorship was another priority of ours. And then the other two that we really wanted to focus on was outreach and mentorship. So we have an outreach committee that is very, very active and is working on a formalized mentorship program as we speak, which probably by the time this airs, we will be kind of rolling out our mentorship program. And then finally, the marketing committee. So we needed to be able to get the word out, not just to our industry, which I think is very, very welcoming of this idea, but to other adjacent industries, right? So again, some of those affiliate kind of parallel organizations and women's groups, we wanted them to know about us. So we have done that, and we have, in a way, part of the marketing committee, we've created a speakers bureau. So women can sign up to be subject matter experts in certain fields. And then we have partners with media outlets from AV, IT, and again, adjacent publications that will come to us and say, we're putting together a panel. Do you have women who can speak on X, Y, and Z topic? And we just pull up our speakers bureau and we say, yes, we do. Here you go. So we're making those connections for women to try to amplify their voices as well. So that's what we've done so far.
That's a lot for year one. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Okay, so I'd love to follow. How do you see, you said, rolling out what you mentioned, sort of a formal mentorship program. How does that look? What do you see as the key parts of mentorship for women in this, in this environment? Does it look like a pretty, what you would normally think of as a mentorship program? Or have you guys, do you have a particular point of view you're taking on that?
So that's a really good idea. I think how I can answer that is yes and yes, right? So this is going to be a formal mentorship program. We've all had informal mentors. Actually, some of the more impactful mentors that I've had have been because they haven't even realized that they were mentors to me, right? So, but this is going to be a formal mentorship program. There's going to be help and guidance for the mentors as well as the mentees to make sure that it's successful. So we are taking our time to develop some recommendations for mentors, but we're also creating guidelines for mentees. And by that, I mean, we find it just as important, if not more important, that a mentee comes prepared with questions, with a profiled outline of what they would like to get out of the mentorship, where they would like to grow, where they find gaps for them. And so we're putting together a program that's going to be able to help put together, create a really great interaction between a mentor and a mentee based on certain criteria, right? But the other part of this that you may or may not know is that WAVIT had partnered with a group called American Music and Sound, AM&S. And they have brands such as Allen and Heath, right? And they came to us and said, we have an opening for a marketing intern, and we'd like to invite women to apply. Can you use your network to help us? And we said, absolutely. So we worked with them every step of the way to help develop a job description that was a little bit more friendly to women. We helped them through the process of posting. So we not only posted it on our website and job boards, but we reached out to, again, affiliates that we have and asked them to post as well. We brought in, and this is so, I don't even know how we did this, but it just speaks to the reach and to the passion that these women have. We brought in over 120 applicants for this one position. So, and the vast majority were women. And so we helped with the interview process. And then so they made a decision on 2 people. They're actually going to bring in 2 interns now because they were so well qualified.
Nice.
And part of the requirement of this internship is to work with a mentor at WAVIT so that this intern not only has a feel for the job, but then also is connected to somebody who is well embedded in the industry. And we have a better chance of keeping them in our industry if we mentor them within our industry. So that's one of the other pieces of this mentorship program that we're working on building out is mentoring interns to retain them in the industry.
That's awesome. I love that story. And just real quickly, couldn't agree more that those connections in the industry outside of your actual place of work seem to make such a huge difference. I was very excited that this year, my institution, Yavapai College, has 2 winners of the Hetma Prism Scholarship, which I'm pumped about. But one of the main reasons was because part of that program is the same thing. There's a formal mentorship process that goes along with it. And those 2 young women were going to get connected and have been now for 6 months with other women in the industry that are not me and my managers and the people at Yavapai College that can bring other perspectives that, that is so important. And there are times where I think it's challenging for them because you do hear about how, different perspectives. And I think all that does is increase the opportunity, like you said, that they can be retained in the industry and see it for more than just the one place that they're working or just their, one city or one region, but have a little bit more of a national or global view.
Absolutely. And, from a diversity perspective, and we all know this, our industry, our organizations, our institutions are so much stronger when you have diversity of thought, right? And diversity of points of view, different cultures, different upbringings, it just becomes so much stronger. And with the world changing as quickly as it is, with our industry changing as quickly as it is, in order to weather incoming storms, in order to really be able to move quickly in a way that makes sense when some curveball is thrown at you, and we've been through a few of those in the past 3 years, right? We really do need that strength. Otherwise, it's very easy to kind of tip over and just flail in the wind. So I think what we really saw was this need to diversify, and it's also why we have that professional development for women in the industry to be able to move into executive positions or leadership positions within their organization. It's so important for that. And yes, the diversity of thought and opinion is a huge challenge in AV and technology in general. And me being on the higher ed side, there are parts, especially more in the IT side, where I think we do there is a little bit more diversity in higher ed than in general, but it's still not, it does not look like the population as a whole. And it's so exciting, right, the ways that people are working on that. Going down that road, how do you see sort of the progress of the change of our industry in terms of women? I know, like you said, I think there's a lot of welcoming about the talk about these issues. And it seems like what you hear a lot is there are great conversations taking place, and that is key. But as, like you said, as your organization, and you are choosing to take those conversations and really try and put them into action, how would you characterize where we are? How would you forecast the coming years for women in AV? Really, really good question. I am going to be blunt and say that where we are is not where we need to be by any stretch of the imagination. And in fact, it's pretty sad. The audiovisual industry has about 11%, depending on which survey you trust, between 11 and 13% women.
Yeah.
Obviously, 52% of the world's population is women. So we are nowhere near where we need to be to adequately represent the global population. So we have a long way to go. And it's one of the reasons why we started WAVIT, right? Was, to your point, there's a lot of great conversations going on, but those conversations have to result in action in order to make that difference. So that's what WAVIT is committed to, is really providing a platform for action. And so we have a ton, I shouldn't say a ton. We have about 10 committees that are up and running or about to be up and running in the next Q1. And so we are working through prioritizations for those committees. You know, here's the top 3 things that this committee should be focused on for the next 3 to 6 months. Have at it. You figure out how to get us here, right? Because that's what we need. We don't need a lot of red tape. We don't need a lot of bureaucracy. We don't need, well, we have to do it this way because of X, Y, and Z. We need people who will help us to get things done. And knowing that, we've said we will prioritize all of these activities, and then you figure out a way to get there. So that's how we're going to make that difference. But to your point, I think the future is bright, honestly. It was, so, George and Rich from PACE, and they had that event a couple of weeks ago for high school students that was exceptionally well attended, standing room only. It was inspiring to see the amount of youth interested in AV in that room. Like, nobody was on their phone, like, nose deep in their screen, whatever it is. They were all up looking at the speaker. They were engaged. They were asking questions. Well, right after those sessions had closed, George and Rich took the students on a tour of the building that we were in, and they ended up in a little room that was a studio, and we all had little tables set up. WAVIT had a table, and I can't tell you the amount of young girls who came up to me and said, we loved hearing about your journey. We are excited to learn about this industry. I would be interested in connecting with you later. And even the next day, 24 hours later, I got a LinkedIn request from one of the students there saying, you all said that I should probably have a LinkedIn profile, so here it is. Would you like to connect with me? We're making a difference whether we believe it or not, just by doing things like that. I really think that the future is so bright, and nothing's going to take away from an incredible college education. But there are students who don't see their future in college. So if we can reach them in high school and say, we have a path for you, gosh, that's so important. Both boys and girls, right? I think that's so important. So the future is bright. I think we're going to get to continue to grow from 11 to 13% to maybe 20% in the next 5 years. I would love to see that kind of growth. I would love to see greater growth than that. But I also know there's challenges. When you don't see yourself reflected back in the industry's mirror, it's really concerning. And you start to wonder, am I going to fit in? So we have a lot to change, but we're doing the right things.
Yeah, it may seem like 1 in 5 is still not much, but it's a whole lot better than 1 in 10 if you are walking. I've shared this story before, but my wife came to Infocom this past year and worked from there, and then toward the end of the day would walk to the floor as we were closing down, and so I asked, so of people walking by, what did you see? And just the eye test sort of gave you that same number, and of how many women are there, how are they interacting, how are they, it was really interesting to see sort of an outside perspective on that. But yeah, those connections one at a time make a difference. And the fact that you've got an on-ramp available for people like this, where for young girls or women in the industry to stay connected and get connected, it makes a difference. Sometimes it's hard to see individual connections as something that moves at scale, but I think it's the only thing that moves things at scale are those types of things, those experiences that you're building and or providing the opportunity to build. So that's awesome. One more question for you. It sounds like you guys were pretty specific in being not just WAVE, but WAVIT, adding IT on there. How do you see, because the IT compared to AV, that's a whole other giant area and industry. How do you see both the organization and the interplay between AV and IT being part of the mission of WAVIT?
So that's a great question. And as you know, specifically in higher ed, IT is kind of your umbrella, right? Mm-hmm. And AV lives as a department within IT. And we almost saw how big IT is and said, let's leverage that size. Yeah. They're believe it or not, their percent, and I cannot remember it off the top of my head, but I will send it to you so that you can send it out. But yeah, the percentage of women in IT is actually just a little bit higher than AV. Mm-hmm. So leveraging their size and their slight, increase in women in that part of the industry, I think made a lot of sense for us. We have organizations that are part of the IT world that are so diverse, whether it's cybersecurity. I mean, it doesn't have to be just hardware, right? It can be cybersecurity and software. It can be computer sciences. AV encompasses a little bit. IT encompasses a lot of it. Yeah. And so it just expands our reach. And because so much of AV that's used day to day is networked now and is IP based, it just only makes sense that we're going to get more and more and more and more and more embedded into that world. So, call it a little bit of we want to use your size, and call it a little bit of leveraging future resistance by aligning with the IT industry. But I think that really made sense for WAVIT.
I would agree. Yeah, I know in AV, especially even in higher ed, there's AV is something different and always will be versus they're the same thing debate. And I'm well on one side as someone whose position is now far more IT based than AV based. There's a ton to be leveraged there. And in fact, I think the AV industry has a lot to offer the wider IT industry also. So I agree. That's awesome. It sounds exciting. And okay, so let's if people want to, if they haven't been a member of WAVIT, or how do I find out more about it? Where do I go? How do I become a member? What does it take? You know what I'm saying? What does volunteering for WAVIT look like?
Excellent question. You can go to womeninavit.org. And you can sign up to be a member there. And we are extending, as our holiday gift to everybody, we are extending our founding member level pricing for the next 3 months. So you'll be able to sign up at the same price as you did when we first started back in January. There is, when you sign up to be a member, there is a survey that you'll fill out that will indicate what are you most interested in? Like, why are you joining WAVIT? And then from there, we can align you with the appropriate committee so that you can start volunteering. And if anybody out there has filled out that survey and has not heard from a committee and is interested in volunteering, please, please, please reach out to me directly. I will make sure that we use your passion and your inspiration and your bandwidth for some really great things. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Gina Sansivero. You can find me on Twitter at Gina Sans. You can find me on Instagram, but that's really about puppies and food. So you might want to skip that one.
That sounds great also. Puppies and food. What's wrong with that? That sounds just as good. I know, exactly. Well, Gina, thank you for that. And thank you for sharing so much about this. It's fun to talk about, but what I hear is kind of not only is it obvious you have passion for it, but WAVIT has a plan. This is well thought out. It's not just well intentioned, but it's well designed. And the sort of organization that I think a lot of people can sink their teeth into and get not only the feeling that that they're part of change, but get that return feeling of knowing that they're part of the solution. So I appreciate you taking the time to share all that with us today.
Absolutely. And Ryan, we do have a special affiliate membership for HETMA members as well. So if there is anybody in the HETMA organization that would like more information about that, please reach out to me.
Thank you for listening to the AVIT Amplifier. Tune in next week for more with today's guest. It'll be great or your money back. Your host has been Ryan Gray. He's on the tweeters at Ryan_A_Gray, or find him on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe and give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. Everyone hang in there, go easy, and we'll be back next week.